The rain battered the cracked windshield of Tom Carver's '98 Corolla, each drop a reminder of the life he was barely holding together. He sat in the driver's seat, hands trembling as he adjusted his tie, a thrift store find. Slightly frayed, but the best he could do. The dashboard clock blinked 8:47 a.m., mocking him. He was late. Again. Not just for the interview that could change everything, but for the school drop-off he'd promised his daughter, Lily, he'd handle. She was 8, all pigtails and quiet trust, and he'd left her with Mrs. Delaney next door because the bus had broken down. Again. Tom's phone buzzed in the cup holder. A text from his sister, Jen. Asterisk, you got this, Tommy. Don't screw it up. Asterisk, he exhaled, fogging the glass. The job was for a logistics manager at Harrow & Sons, a steady gig with benefits, health insurance for Lily's asthma, maybe enough to fix the car, or at least pay the electric bill before the shutoff notice became reality. He'd been out of work since the warehouse closed 6 months ago, scraping by on odd jobs and Jen's occasional Venmo transfers. This was his shot. He couldn't blow it. The office building loomed through the downpour, a sleek tower of glass and steel in downtown Pittsburgh. Tom sprinted across the lot, his too-tight dress shoes slipping on wet asphalt. Inside, the lobby was all marble and quiet wealth, the kind of place that made him feel like an intruder. He smoothed his damp jacket, checked the crumpled post-it in his pocket, 9:00 a.m., Harrow & Sons, Suite 1402. The elevator dinged, and he stepped in, rehearsing his pitch. Asterisk, reliable. Hardworking. Good with numbers. Asterisk, he'd practiced in the mirror last night while Lily giggled, calling him Mr. Fancy. The 14th floor was a maze of glass doors and nameplates. Suite 1402 was at the end, the door slightly ajar. He knocked, heart pounding, and a voice called, "Come in." Tom stepped inside, expecting a receptionist or a hiring manager. Instead, a woman sat alone at a conference table, her back to the window. She was maybe 50, with sharp green eyes and a tailored blazer that screamed money. Papers were spread before her, but no laptop, no phone, just a single pen, poised in her hand. "You're late," she said, not looking up. Her voice was calm but edged, like a teacher who'd caught you cheating but hadn't decided your punishment yet. "I'm so sorry," Tom stammered, wiping rain from his forehead. "The weather, and my daughter, there was a mix-up. I'm here for the logistics manager position." Tom Carver. She froze, her pen hovering. Slowly, she lifted her gaze, and Tom felt pinned, like a bug under glass. Her eyes searched his face, lingering on his cheap tie, his damp collar. "Logistics manager," she repeated, as if testing the words. Then, inexplicably, she smiled. Not a warm smile, but something heavier, like she'd just solved a puzzle. "Sit down, Mr. Carver. I've been waiting for you since 2010. Tom blinked, unsure he'd heard right. "Since 2010. He laughed nervously, easing into the chair. "Must be some mix-up. I only applied last week." She leaned back, folding her hands. "No mix-up. My name is Eleanor Hargrove. And you're exactly where you're supposed to be." Tom's stomach twisted. Something was off. The room felt too quiet, the air too still. He glanced at the door, half expecting a camera crew to burst in, shouting, "You've been pranked." But Eleanor just watched him, her expression unreadable. "I don't understand," he said. "Harrow & Sons is next door. Suite 1403. She tapped the table lightly. "This is Hargrove Solutions. We don't do logistics. We do something else." Tom's face burned. Wrong room. Wrong interview. He stood, fumbling for words. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to waste your time. I'll just..." "Sit," she said again, not a request. Her tone softened, but her eyes held that same intensity. "You're not wasting my time. In fact, you're the first person in 15 years who might be worth it." He sank back into the chair, confusion warring with curiosity. "What do you mean?" Eleanor leaned forward, her voice dropping. "In 2010, I made a promise. I've been looking for someone to keep it. Not just anyone. Someone who understands what it means to fight for something bigger than themselves. Someone who's been broken, but keeps going. I think that's you, Tom Carver." He stared, his mind racing. This wasn't a job interview. This was, what? A test? A scam? He thought of Lily, waiting at school, probably drawing him as a superhero in her notebook. He couldn't afford to get sucked into whatever this was. "Look, Miss Hargrove, I'm just a guy trying to pay my bills. I don't know what you're talking about." Her smile returned, softer this time. "I know exactly who you are. You're the man who carried his neighbor's groceries up 3 flights last week. even though you were running late. You're the father who stays up sewing patches on his daughter's jeans because you can't afford new ones. You're the one who gave your last $20 to a stranger at the gas station because he looked hungrier than you felt. Tom's breath caught. How do you know all that? I make it my business to know, she said simply. Hargrove Solutions isn't a company in the traditional sense. We find people who do good, quietly, and we give them a chance to do more. Much more. He shook his head, incredulous. You're saying you've been watching me? Not watching. Searching. She slid a folder across the table. Open it. Against his better judgment, Tom did. Inside was a single photograph. A young girl, maybe 10, with braids and a gap-toothed smile, standing in front of a crumbling school. The background was unfamiliar, dusty, with signs in a language he couldn't read. Clipped to the photo was a note in neat handwriting. Asterisk Amina, 2010. Waiting. Asterisk. Who's this? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Her name was Amina, Eleanor said. She lived in a village in Somalia. I met her when I was there, working on a water project. She wanted to be a doctor. She had this laugh. Eleanor's voice wavered, just for a second. She died that year. Malnutrition. The kind of thing we could have prevented if we'd been faster, smarter. I promised her I'd make sure other kids like her got a chance. Tom's throat tightened. He thought of Lily, her inhaler always in his pocket, her small hand in his. That's awful, he said. But what does this have to do with me? Everything, Eleanor said. I've spent 15 years building something, a network, a foundation, call it what you want. We fund schools, clinics, clean water projects. But we don't need executives or MBAs. We need people like you, Tom. People who know what it's like to struggle, who'll fight for others because they've had to fight for themselves. He stared at the photo, Amina's eyes bright and alive. You want me to, what? Work for you. Not work for me. Work with me. She pulled another folder from the stack, this one thicker. There's a school in West Virginia, not far from here. It's falling apart, leaking roof, no heat, kids sharing textbooks from the 90s. The district can't afford to fix it. We can. But I need someone to lead the project, someone who can talk to the community, not just the bureaucrats. Someone who knows what it's like to feel invisible. Tom's mind spun. West Virginia. Lily's school wasn't much better, mold in the walls, teachers buying supplies out of pocket. He'd written letters to the board, gotten nowhere. I'm not qualified, he said. I'm not a leader. I'm just exactly who we need, Eleanor cut in. You don't need a degree to care, Tom. You've been leading your whole life. You just don't call it that. He looked at the folder, then back at her. What's the catch? No catch, she said. The job pays enough to cover your bills, plus benefits. You'd start next week. But it's not easy. It's long hours, hard choices. You'll see things that break your heart. And you'll have to trust me. Trust. The word hung between them. Tom thought of the scams he dodged, pyramid schemes, fake job ads. But Eleanor's eyes held no deceit, only a quiet urgency. And there was Amina's photo, staring up at him. He thought of Lily, of the world he wanted for her. A world where people helped each other, not just themselves. I need to think about it, he said finally. For my daughter. Eleanor nodded. Take the day. Call me by tonight. She slid a card across the table, simple white with a number. And Tom? You're not as alone as you think. He left the office in a daze, the card burning a hole in his pocket. The rain had stopped, and the city felt sharper, brighter. He drove to Lily's school, early for once, and watched her run out, her backpack bouncing. Dad, she shouted, hugging him. You look fancy. He laughed, ruffling her hair. Fancy enough for ice cream? Her eyes widened. Really? Really? They walked to the corner shop, and he splurged on 2 cones, even though it meant skipping lunch tomorrow. As Lily chattered about her day, Tom's mind drifted to Eleanor's words. Someone who's been broken but keeps going. He'd been broken plenty, his wife leaving when Lily was 2, the layoffs, the endless grind. But he kept going. For Lily. For himself. That night, after Lily was asleep, Tom sat at the kitchen table, the card in front of him. He thought of his dad, a steelworker who died too young, always saying, do the right thing, even when it's hard. He thought of Amina, of the school in West Virginia, of all the kids like Lily who deserved better. He dialed the number. Eleanor, he said when she answered. I'm in. The next week was a whirlwind. Tom met Eleanor's team, engineers, teachers, even a former nurse, all people who'd been found the way he had, through small acts of kindness that added up. They didn't talk about resumes or credentials. They talked about purpose. The West Virginia project was real. A rural school with 200 kids, half on free lunch, most from families hit hard by the opioid crisis. Tom visited the site, met the principal, a tired but fierce woman named Marla who hugged him when he promised to fight for her kids. The work was grueling. Tom spent days coordinating contractors, nights writing grant proposals with Eleanor's guidance. He learned to navigate red tape, to speak up in meetings where he felt out of place. But every time he doubted himself, he'd see Lily's drawing taped to his desk, a stick-figure superhero labeled Dad, or he'd think of Amina's smile. And he'd keep going. Months later, the school's ribbon cutting was a quiet affair, just locals and a few donors. The roof was new, the classrooms warm, the library stocked with books. Marla cried when she saw the science lab. A kid named Jamal, who reminded Tom of himself at that age, shyly handed him a thank you note. "You made it better," it said. Tom stood in the parking lot afterward, watching Lily play tag with Jamal and the other kids. Eleanor joined him, her usual sharpness softened by the moment. "You did good," she said. "We did good," he corrected, and she laughed. "You know," she said, "Amina would have liked you." Tom swallowed the lump in his throat. "I hope so." That night, he tucked Lily into bed, her inhaler on the nightstand. "Dad," she mumbled, half asleep, "are you a superhero now?" He kissed her forehead. "Nah, kiddo. Just trying to do the right thing." As he turned out the light, Tom felt something shift inside him, not just hope, but certainty. He wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to change the world, one small act at a time.